Everyone around Blake Lively thought that keeping the lawsuit going at this point, after everything that had gone on over the last year and a half, was just an idiotic idea.
So according to these new text messages, Blake Lively asked Sony to delete evidence.
There were certain dailies that Blake Lively wanted Sony to...
Blake Lively stared the attorneys dead in the eye and committed a crime that could end her entire career. On July 31st, during a high-stakes deposition where every single word was being recorded for the record, she was asked a straightforward, direct question. Did she ever ask Sony to destroy the raw footage from the movie set? She said no. She said it again when they pressed her, remaining calm, composed, and completely unaware that her world was about to implode. She thought the evidence was gone, burned and deleted forever, but she made one fatal mistake. She didn't know Justin Baldoni was holding the receipts that would prove she just committed perjury.
Us to destroy some of the dailies. Want to tell you what we will and won't do. Also, going to ask Bridget to contact all vendors and ask them.
The fallout from that single moment has sent shockwaves through Hollywood, leaving her celebrity inner circle in a state of absolute panic. For months, the industry elite stood by her, but as the details of the deleted dailies began to leak, the narrative shifted instantly. Fans have officially dropped the hammer, calling out any star who defended her while she was allegedly working behind the scenes to erase the truth. It wasn't just a creative disagreement on a film set, it was a calculated legal maneuver that went horribly wrong. Now, the stars who once championed her are being forced to choose between their loyalty and their own public reputations.
Part of that is we don't want to be bullied and left out.
Yep.
We want to keep...
The aftermath has been especially crushing for the most famous friendship in Hollywood. Accounts have emerged suggesting that Taylor Swift felt she had no option but to draw a line in the sand. The friendship had reportedly fallen under the heavy burden of the legal drama and the blurred duties of their public lives. Taylor reportedly didn't want to be a pawn in a tangled legal battle involving erased evidence and workplace complaints. For a bond that was once considered the gold standard of celebrity friendships, the sudden silence was deafening. It revealed that even the strongest ties can collapse when the stakes involve perjury and digital receipts.
Where capitalism is rampant and it feeds off of insecurity.
At the heart of this conflict was a brutal battle for creative control on the set of It Ends With Us. Blake and her team were advocating for a specific promotional style and a particular direction for the film, while Justin Baldoni maintained his authority as the director. Tensions erupted during the editing process when multiple versions of the movie were being tested with audiences. Internal frustration among studio executives was approaching a breaking point, as one side fought for the tone of the film, while the other fought for their own image. It was a typical Hollywood power struggle, but this one was uniquely documented by every single daily recorded on set.
Ashley found her way to Lively to tell her that Stephanie Jones was trying to reach her because she had obtained Jane Abel's phones that had some text messages or messages that she wanted.
Blake's legal filings allege she was pursuing necessary workplace protections, including the presence of an intimacy coordinator and boundaries on comments about her appearance. Her team claimed these were routine requests for a safe environment, but the production side saw it very differently. They argued these terms were only agreed to under heavy pressure following the industry strikes. The metadata of these documents became a major point of contention as lawyers started digging into exactly when these complaints were written. They wanted to know if the grievances were backdated to fit a legal narrative rather than reflecting what truly happened during the filming process.
To file a lawsuit in New York State Court to issue the subpoena that we now see to Stephanie Jones to obtain all the documents that Stephanie Jones told her at the very least.
The pressure on Blake reached a record high as the case headed toward a planned trial in 2026. A trial meant she would have to take the stand again and face a brutal cross-examination about the deleted footage and those contradictory text messages. It meant the raw footage Justin held could be played for a jury and the entire world to see. The risk to her brand was enormous because if a judge or jury decided she had lied under oath, her career might never recover. The shield of star power was rapidly eroding, and the reality of the evidence was becoming impossible to ignore or delete, no matter how much influence she thought she had over the studio.
Handed move just shows me that they actually had no intention of filing their lawsuit. that instead they were hoping to get the documents that they had in a way that they
The psychological climate on set was described by some as a struggle for the man card, a phrase used to highlight the insecurity and rampant capitalism that thrives in high-pressure environments. This corrosive atmosphere formed a divide that couldn't be bridged by a simple conversation. Every interaction was treated as a potential piece of evidence, and every creative choice became a battleground. By the time the film was finished, the relationship between the two leads was non-existent. They weren't just two actors who didn't get along anymore. They were two litigants waiting for an opportunity to destroy one another completely in a court of law.
Brian Friedman's deposition, he claims that somebody close to Taylor Swift, we presume Papa Swift, her dad, contacted him in February of 2025 and claimed that about 5 months prior, Blake Lively had instructed Taylor.
In an unexpected turn of events, a series of highly private messages began surfacing in media coverage shortly after certain legal filings were withdrawn. This led to an intense debate about how information flows among lawyers, publicists, and the press. It looked like an organized effort to win the battle in the court of public opinion since the court of law was becoming far too risky for Blake's side. This selective release of information appeared to be a desperate attempt to keep her narrative alive while the legal foundation was starting to crack under the weight of Justin's archived media. The public began to see through the polished PR veneer.
Says that Taylor feels she has no choice but to draw a line. Their friendship collapsed months ago, and she doesn't want blurred of.
Justin's legal team, led by the formidable Brian Friedman, stayed laser-focused on the archived footage. They understood that as long as those recordings existed, both sides of every incident could be examined with a magnifying glass. They didn't have to depend on who was more famous or who had more powerful connections in the industry because they had the literal tapes. This changed the entire dynamic of the case from a he said, she said celebrity gossip story into a serious legal inquiry into the preservation of evidence. Blake's choice to ask for the destruction of those tapes became the very thing that haunted her throughout the entire litigation.
Aldoni reached a settlement today in their years-long legal battle, which looks.
The dispute also pulled back the curtain on the role of crisis PR in contemporary Hollywood. Every move was designed to provide a polished face to the public, while the behind-the-scenes legal tactics were getting increasingly chaotic and hostile. The use of shell companies and subpoenas for personal phones showed a level of aggression that most fans wouldn't expect from their favorite stars. It revealed a world where documentation is the only true currency, and where fame cannot protect you from a digital trail. Blake's confidence was based on the idea that she could control the flow of information, but she forgot that in the digital age, nothing is ever truly gone. When a judge ordered certain filings to be struck from the public record, Blake's supporters tried to claim it as a victory. They believed it validated her objections to the media circus, but the reality was much more complex. The judge was simply trying to keep the focus on the central legal issues rather than allowing the case to become a tabloid spectacle. However, the damage to her reputation was already done. The allegations of deleted texts and the requested destruction of footage were already firmly in the public consciousness, and no court order could erase the difficult questions that were now being asked by fans and critics worldwide. Witness testimony from individuals on set varied widely, which was a major red flag for the defense. Some recalled general discussions about workplace concerns, while others could not remember the specific details that appeared in the written complaints filed much later. The defense argued that the narrative was being constructed after the fact to justify a specific legal strategy. They used metadata and early drafts of the complaints to demonstrate how the story had evolved over time to make Justin look worse. It was a careful deconstruction of a celebrity's attempt to reshape history, and it was all supported by the very footage she tried to eliminate. To understand why this situation escalated so quickly, you have to understand the power of a daily. In the film industry, dailies are the raw, unedited footage recorded each day. They are the ultimate source of truth because they show what happens before the director calls action and after they call cut. They capture the whispers, the eye rolls, and the genuine tension that actors try to conceal. According to leaked emails, Blake specifically asked Sony to remove certain footage to cover her tracks. She believed she could replace the truth with her own version because she was the bigger star, but she underestimated the technical backups that were in place. The level of scrutiny on Blake became unlike anything she had ever experienced in her long career. Every previous production she had ever worked on was suddenly being re-examined for similar patterns of difficult behavior. People began to find it unusual that so many of her projects appeared to have high levels of internal conflict. Whether these observations were accurate or not, the narrative of her being a nightmare to work with began to trend across social media. This is the danger of a legal battle escalating out of control. It doesn't just affect the case, it reshapes your entire legacy in the eyes of the public and the industry power players. The turning point in the legal war came when a bombshell email from September 30th surfaced. It was sent by a senior marketing president at Sony who had worked on major studio films for decades. She told the leadership that in all her years, she had never been asked by a star to destroy raw footage on a film that contained no sensitive or graphic scenes. Usually, actors only request deletions for privacy or to prevent leaks, but this project had none of that. Blake's request was described as unusual and unprecedented, and it immediately raised massive red flags for everyone involved in the legal battle, including the studio's own lawyers. Blake believed she was safe during her deposition because she assumed her request to delete the files had been carried out by the vendors. She walked into that room with a false sense of confidence, thinking the files were gone forever. She did not realize that Justin Baldoni and his company, Wayfarer Studios, had their own hidden backup copies of every single frame ever recorded. While she was portraying Justin as the villain of the set to the media, he was sitting on 10 minutes of raw footage that told an entirely different version of events. He waited for her to lie under oath first, effectively baiting her into a trap she couldn't escape. In her formal complaints, Blake made serious allegations about a specific dance scene they filmed together. She described Justin as inappropriate and aggressive, claiming he created a hostile environment that left her feeling unsafe. It was a narrative intended to secure public sympathy and destroy his reputation. However, when the raw footage was finally introduced as counter-evidence, the behavior on screen didn't match her claims at all. The audio from a body microphone captured the actual dialogue in its full context, showing a professional environment that directly conflicted with the story she had presented to the courts and the press. The legal conflict took an even darker turn when a woman named Jennifer Abel became central to a privacy controversy. Abel was a public relations professional working for Justin's company, and her work phone contained years of private communications. Her phone was taken under the pretext of transferring a number, but shortly after, Blake's publicist contacted Justin's team claiming she had already seen private messages from that device. This raised serious concerns about a potential illegal breach of privacy. The question became how Blake's team accessed information from a phone that didn't belong to them, leading to even more legal heat. To navigate these legal complications, a mysterious shell company called Vanson Incorporated suddenly appeared. This entity filed a lawsuit in New York, a tactic often used when the defendant is supposedly unknown. Its apparent purpose was to issue subpoenas and collect private messages under the appearance of legal legitimacy. It functioned as a mechanism to gather communications tied to retaliation claims and connect private info to a formal process. The strategy appeared highly calculated and controversial, further fueling the idea that Blake's team was willing to go to extreme lengths to win the narrative war against Justin Baldoni. The situation intensified even further when Taylor Swift's name was officially entered into the dispute. According to sworn filings from Justin's lawyer, the conflict extended deep into Taylor's close circle. It was alleged that someone close to the singer, potentially her father, contacted the legal team in early 2025. The most explosive claim was that Blake had allegedly instructed Taylor Swift to delete their private text messages months earlier. This triggered widespread speculation among fans. Why would Blake ask for the deletion of messages unless they contained something that could create a massive legal risk for her and her high-profile friends? In May 2026, just before the trial was scheduled to begin, both sides reached a sudden settlement. They issued a joint statement that was vague and professional, the kind that usually signals the end of a very expensive and very risky conflict. The terms were kept strictly confidential, but the message was clear to everyone in Hollywood. Neither side wanted to risk everything on a jury's decision. For Blake, the settlement was a way to stop the bleeding and prevent further raw footage from leaking. For Justin, it was a resolution that allowed him to move past a situation that threatened to define his entire life and career. The fallout from this dispute will be studied in the industry for years to come. It serves as a cautionary tale about the limits of star power in an era of digital backups and cloud storage. You can be the biggest name in the room, you can have the most powerful PR team, and you can even have the most famous friends in the world, but you cannot simply delete the truth. Blake's attempt to challenge the existence of the dailies became the spark that dismantled her entire strategy. It turned a creative disagreement into a legal nightmare that cost her friendships, her reputation, and likely millions of dollars in legal fees. Ultimately, this case proves that in the modern world, receipts always win. The preservation of media is the ultimate equalizer in high-profile celebrity disputes. Whether it is a body mic on a film set or a private text message to a friend, the digital trail is permanent. Blake Lively believed she was making a strategic move to protect her image, but she ended up providing the blueprint for her own downfall. As the industry moves forward, the lesson for every star is clear. Do not assume you are the only one with a backup copy, because the moment you do, your entire narrative can collapse in an instant.